Let's talk about a cozy male-male romance by Alina Isaacs called Phantom and Rook. Hello everyone, welcome and welcome back to A Fictional Escapist. My name is Kris, and today's video is the Phantom and Rook book review. This is a book written by Noah Hawthorne under the pen name Alina Isaacs. This book is honestly a little bit out of my scope. It's cozy fantasy, it was male-male romance, and it was very heavy on both of those themes. So it's not something I would normally read, but surprisingly, still had a pretty good time with it. Before we jump into the review, make sure you check in the description box down below for links to my social media and Discord should you want to come along for the ride. Now, Phantom and Rook was this heartwarming, cozy, queer fantasy romance that offered some really wonderful conversations around love, life, friendship, and mental health. Thatch Phantom is an immortal. He's destined to be forgotten time and time again whenever he leaves a certain area. Every time his job is completed, he will then be removed from people's memories. Wearing the scars of his past, he goes back to a town called Levener, where he's hoping to catch a glimpse of an old friend, one who has certainly forgotten him in the 80 years it's been since he last travelled there. Not only does Thatch get a glimpse of this friend, but he also barrels into him in a crowded market. A confused Arlo Rook is immediately taken by a mess of copper curls without knowing why. Thatch asks Arlo to show him around town, which Arlo refuses, being a cranky witch that he is, even though he can't stop thinking about the man in the market with the gorgeous red curls. Arlo Rook has gone through a mental health journey, and he is trying to break away from this constant belief that he needs to be watched and coddled years after an attempt on his own life lands him in the hospital. He is desperately trying to move past this stigma, and he's ready to move on and move out of his current residence and experience the world on his own once more. He has a group of overly supportive friends, and Thatch is always on his brain. It may be time for this grumpy hedge witch to finally branch out of his comfort zone once more. These two, Thatch and Arlo, will dance around each other as life goes on around them in Levener. The game is set, the mocha scones are warm, and these two can't stop running into each other, even if it's destined to end in Thatch needing to leave once again. There are some other plot points that sort of come into the story, but it is very much about these two and their connection and the will they, won't they, and just what happens around them in life within this town. I'll be the first to admit, this is not a story I would generally gravitate towards. You know me, I'm not much of a romance reader, at least not when it's the main plot of this book, which I would argue this one definitely is. However, this book offered a great look into a couple of things, and some of the execution of the elements within this story were done really well. The first thing I'll talk about is the thematic. So this book, like I said, offered a great look into a few things, one being mental health, the ideas around friendship and growing up that I didn't really expect. The author has also taken a really great deal of care to make this city and this world as vivid as humanly possible, and it was a lot of fun to explore and see what happened in the city of Levener. And the last thing I'll mention here is just how easy and comforting this story was to consume in amongst some other big, darker reads. Jumping into thematics, the care taken surrounding the thematics of this book were incredible in my opinion. The author has taken a really deep look into the extreme sides of depression, of suicidal ideation, and the aftermath of Rook's hospital stay. Rook's friends are concerned and they're tiptoeing around some of the topics while others are facing it head on and trying to help him move on with his life. Rook doesn't shy away from his past actions and is now facing the consequences of what has happened a few years prior. What really shines through here is the strength and the emotions it can take to ask for help when it is needed, accepting that it is okay not to feel okay, and knowing when is best to call in medical help rather than talking to someone close to you that might be a friend. Mental illness affects more than one person currently going through it, and I think the group dynamic of the characters within this book showcase that in a beautiful way. Friendship was also an incredibly strong theme in this book, from the jealousies of a new person in the group, hidden romantic feelings, and genuine love and affection being shown between friends rather than lovers was wonderful to experience. Moving on to the world. The city of Lebanon was vibrant, it was lived in, it was crowded, and it was colourful. This urban fantasy story really let the reader explore everything that this city had to offer, and trust me, it was a lot. From solar surfing, literal waves of light, to swampy cottages housing unwanted ghosts, and secret hideaways for romantic moments. We also had things like cozy cafes and bookshops, overly crowded dive bars, a giant academy with a orphanage and a homely kitchen for these kids to cause mischief in. It was just incredible. Lebanon had it all. It felt full. It felt like somewhere you would want to visit as a seasoned traveler. The world made this book an absolute delight to consume, and as a literary tourist wanting to see it all, I had a great time. Speaking of the consumption of the book, each time I picked this book up, I felt comforted. I knew that I wasn't going to be thrown immediately into a high-stakes situation, which one of my favourite characters may or may not make it through, which happens a lot reading fantasy, if you have read it as long as I have. Sure, there were definitely a couple of moments in this book where it did get a little bit dicey, but I never really felt like a bloody battle was about to rip through, setting fire to an entire land to start some farm kid story. In this book, we got to experience life for the sake of life, and it was a very refreshing experience for me, who does read a lot of those other books where the farm kids have to start off in some awful circumstances. Now, I won't sit here and tell you that I'd love to read these types of stories over and over again, but I am glad that I read this one. Phantom and Rook was quietly delightful, and the author has done a great job of being inclusive to many communities throughout our lives that we just encounter in our everyday lives, and introduces important thematics and creates a very vibrant world. I had a pretty good time with Phantom and Rook. Have you read this one? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, or let me know if you're going to pick it up. If you like the content, give it one of those. If you want to see more of it, click subscribe at your will, and I'll catch you in the next video. Ciao.